Breed, a QM production. Tonight's episode, The Compulsion to Confess, starring Leslie Nielsen, co-starring Harold J. Stone, John Lascelles, Sidney Pollack, with special guest star Telly Savalas. At Los Angeles Police Headquarters, the Homicide Division, under the direction of Lieutenant Howard Klein, conducted a vigorous investigation of Warren Green's murder. But after a week of intensive work, their investigation had reached a dead end. The case was then turned over to the group of specialists within the Los Angeles Police Department known as the Metropolitan Squad, with Lieutenant Price Adams, age 33, B.A. in Criminology, UCLA, class of 48, in charge. His partner, Officer Joe Huddleston, age 27, science major from Stanford, ex-jet pilot.
Park over there in a reserved area, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Adams and Huddleston, part of the elite team of 80 policemen set up as the fluid, intelligent, and tough Metro Squad. Men of the new breed.
Listen to me and listen to me carefully. We purposely bid at an absolute minimum price to get this Army contract. And not only are we going to run over this price and take a heavy loss, but it looks like we won't be able to meet the Army's date.
We're doing everything.
Let me finish, Mark. I don't mind losing money, providing we can establish ourselves with the government as being able to deliver. But I certainly will mind losing out on both counts. Now, what's the delay? Yes?
Lieutenant Price Adams is here, sir.
Send him in.
Yes, sir.
How do you do, Lieutenant? I'm George Sorens.
Mr. Sorens?
This is Mr. Hill and Mr. Birch of our research department, Mr. Giles and Mr. Bodley of our production.
This is Officer Huddleston.
Mr. Sorens, how do you do? We're having a little meeting while waiting. Won't you sit down?
No, thank you. I understand that our homicide division has been through this pretty thoroughly, but there are a few things I'd like to go over again.
In our business, we're used to going over things again and again, Lieutenant.
Good.
We want to help in any way we possibly can. We want to see this terrible thing cleared up as much as you do.
You seem quite confident that none of you here might be implicated by an investigation.
I am confident.
Why?
My intuition about men. I built my business on that.
I see. Well, then, do any of you here know if any antagonism was directed toward Green by anyone in the company?
Nothing that I can think of.
Green was in research at your department, Mr. Hill. Was everything all right between you two?
Absolutely.
You agree with that, Mr. Birch?
Oh, certainly. Well, we had the daily friction of men working together. I'm sure you find that in the police department, Lieutenant, but nothing that you'd call antagonism.
Mr. Birch, do you go up a notch? Do you get a raise in salary now that Green is dead?
Certainly not. I resent your implication.
Sorry. I didn't mean that to sound accusatory. Merely trying to familiarize myself with the executive structure here. You're in charge of production, Mr. Giles. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ever have any run-ins with Green?
Never. We're proud of our labor relations from the executive level all the way down.
All right, then let's drop that for a while and consider another aspect. What about Green's social life? Did he confide in any of you? Any trouble? Perhaps another woman?
Mark, you were friendliest with Elliot. Did he ever confide in you?
Well, if there's any trouble, he never mentioned it to me.
Well, if you recall anything, no matter how seemingly insignificant, business or social, give me a call, will you please?
I don't think there'll be anything, Lieutenant. As I told the lieutenant from Homicide, in all the years that Green has been here since he graduated from Caltech, he's been a quiet man and a hard worker.
Nothing more.
Evidently, someone found him to be something more, Mr. Sorens. Good morning, gentlemen.
Bryce Adams and Joe Huddleston drove from the Sorens Electronics Company to the Pacific Palisades. There, on Amalfi Drive, was Elliot Green's home and his widow.
Yes? I'm Lieutenant Adams, LAPD. This is Officer Huddleston. Is Mrs. Green in?
How many of you guys are going to question her? She's already told everything she knows. Can't you leave her alone?
The case has been turned over to another department, the Metropolitan Squad. We're starting from scratch. I'm sorry.
Very well. Two more police officers, Amelia.
Mrs. Green, I know the strain you must be under. I'm sorry, but we have no choice.
I understand. It's all right. Mr. Hedera is my brother.
Mrs. Green, did your husband ever discuss his work at the plant with you?
Only in a general way. A hard day. A good day.
A hard day. Did he ever mention what made the day hard?
Not specifically. I wouldn't have understood. My husband was an electronics expert. I wouldn't even know what makes a toaster work.
Was there anything of a personal nature that you might tell us that could possibly help us? Did your husband drink or gamble or...
Now, wait a minute, Lieutenant.
Elliot Green was a fine man. A loving father and a loving husband.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Green. That's all.
I'll see you out.
Oh, Mr. Hedera.
Yes?
Were you very close to your brother-in-law?
Very close.
Was he in some kind of financial difficulty?
No, he wasn't.
I'm not your enemy, Mr. Hedera. We're just trying to find the one who has harmed the people you love, directly and indirectly.
I have so much anger in me and nobody to be angry with. I guess I'm taking it out on the police. I'm sorry. I wish I knew something that could help. Elliot didn't deserve this. Believe me, he didn't.
Well, thank you for your cooperation.
Where to, Price?
Well, let's see. Vince and Pete all have completed that list of Green's relatives and friends by now. Head for that hamburger spot in La Cienega.
Beverly Hills?
Yeah. Mary Sam 1 to Mary Sam 2. I'll have them meet us there while we grab some lunch. Mary Sam 1 to Mary Sam 2.
At 12:35 p.m., Sergeant Vince Cavelli, 35, a Marine veteran and expert in arms, and Officer Pete Garcia, 26, a graduate of the United States Army Language School, arrived in Beverly Hills to meet Adams and Huddleston. Cavelli and Garcia had broken down the list of the murdered man's relatives and friends into geographic areas. Price Adams split the assignment in half, and the two teams of the Metropolitan Squad separated to pursue the Green murder investigation. In West Los Angeles, Adams questioned the manager of Elliot Green's bank.
Isn't it possible that he might have discussed a loan with one of your other men?
Mr. Green was a personal friend of mine. I took care of all of his banking business. You could never meet a nicer guy.
In downtown Los Angeles, Cavelli and Garcia questioned Green's insurance agent.
You have all of his policies with you?
I think so. These were the only policies found in his safe deposit box.
when it was opened after the murder. Boy, it's sure hard to get that word out. I've got a lot of customers, Sergeant. Green was the last one I think of in terms of getting murdered.
Well, thanks for your time.
In Hollywood, following the late afternoon services, Adams questioned the rabbi of Green's congregation.
Well, we've been out all day, Rabbi, and it seems to be the same story all over. Green was a prince.
I can only speak for myself. Even princes don't get murdered without a reason. Gentlemen, I tried to puzzle out the reason of the Lord. I leave the other reasons to you.
Well, good evening, Rabbi.
Good evening, gentlemen.
At 11:30 p.m., Captain Keith Gregory, the commander of the Metro Force, joined his men who were collating the Green murder facts to date.
Have you come up with anything? We've come up with a model citizen. Any neighborhood in the country would be delighted to have a man like Elliot Green living in its midst.
That's all, huh? There isn't even anything we can distort into a motive at this point.
You want it officially?
Shoot.
We're stuck.
For Price Adams, the ritual of his morning cup of coffee signaled the beginning of another day of work. On the second day of the Green case, Adams spotted at a nearby table the consultant psychiatrist of the Los Angeles Police Department, Dr. Buell Reed.
You mind if I join you, Doctor?
Not at all. Sit down, Price.
You remember that old Bill Malden cartoon, the GI saying, "I'm not worth a darn without my coffee in the morning"? Should have that tattooed right up here on my forehead. Keeping you busy? If you're busy, sooner or later I get busy. Is there something troubling you, Price? Just wondering if you have a few good motives lying around. I could use one. The Green murder. Yeah, we're batting zero.
You've probably made some hits you don't know about.
For instance?
I assume you've poked around Green's relatives, friends, associates.
Yeah.
The chances are that you've already made contact with the murderer.
Well, I'd hardly call that a hit. It'd be more like an error if we passed him by.
If you've made contact, the murderer hasn't necessarily passed you by.
How do you mean?
Guilty parties usually have what we call a compulsion to confess.
Yeah, go ahead.
A common compulsion. The guilt-ridden unconscious demands justice.
Well, I wouldn't say that the Green murderer has this compulsion going for him.
Ah, you don't know that. Sometimes it happens immediately. You know how many times homicide gets calls from the scene of the murder? I just killed so-and-so. A compulsion to confess. Other times it's not so easy. The criminal's unconscious does real battle with the conscious mind. The compulsion is then worked out very subtly, but the struggle is usually still going on. Duralex, sed lex, a hard law, but nevertheless a law. Perhaps your questioning would serve as a positive catalyst. Jar the murderer into some sort of action which would enable you to apprehend him.
Well, I could use some help from someone, even a murderer. At any rate, Doctor, I feel much better about this thing. Thank you.
Not me, it's the coffee.
Thank you, Doctor. Price, what's next? Let's get out to that Soren's plant. I'm going to take those executives on one by one.
Upon Adams' arrival at the Soren's plant, he questioned Mark Hill, the head of research. When Adams had completed his questioning of Hill, Chris Birch, Hill's assistant, took Adams and Huddleston to the assembly floor of Soren's, where Henry Giles, the executive head of production, was talking to Austin Rogers, the foreman of Soren's Electronics, who worked directly under Giles' supervision.
Hill, Birch, Bartley, and I worked all night. These specifications are letter perfect. My production plan is perfect. Now, there must be something wrong on the floor, Austin.
In a pig's eye. Look, you can tell me you checked these specs until you're blue in the face. I don't care. I'm telling you something's wrong. They're faulty.
The fault is not in the specs. And heads are gonna roll around here if we blow this project.
Are you threatening me?
I am
Look, don't play pass the buck with me. Now, I am willing to take any rap that's coming to me, but not somebody else's.
Calm down, Austin.
What do you mean, calm down? I've broken my back of these things. And now you come around after sitting in that plush executive suite and tell me that heads are going to roll. Well, it's not going to be my head.
Austin, get those sub-assemblies out.
I can't with these. Look, you tell Mark Hill to take these plans and...
Is that all you've got to say?
I've got plenty to say, but you won't listen to me. Why don't you listen to what I'm telling you? Why don't you listen to me?
This isn't going to get us anywhere.
I'd like to have a few words with you, Mr. Giles.
Can't you conduct your investigation after business hours? We have work to do with this plant.
I conduct my investigation as I see fit, Mr. Giles.
I'll be in the clean room in 5 minutes.
I'm warning you, Giles, lay off of me. I'm not going to be your patsy.
It'll be all right, Austin.
Just the daily friction of men working together. Isn't that what you said, Mr. Birch?
That's all it is, Lieutenant.
Where's the clean room?
This way.
Joe, what's a clean room used for?
Well, it's a pressurized room used for checking out very delicate instruments. They try to keep it free from even the smallest particles of dust. You wear those white suits hanging over there. I'm sorry I lost my temper, Lieutenant. We seem to be a little short on tempers around here lately. What was it you wanted to ask me?
Let's start at the top, Mr. Giles.
Failing to get added information from the Sorens executives, Adams and Huddleston returned to headquarters. A radio call revealed that the murder weapon was still unidentified. At 8:25 p.m. in the Sorens clean room, specifications were still being checked by Warren Giles.
I thought you'd gone home.
No. I had a few things to do. You on anything?
Not a thing. Unless you can call finding the cause of the delay a thing.
Are you sure?
Positive. Well, here, take a look. Do you remember when we were discussing this new triggering system a long time ago? We agreed that it would be necessary to use magnetrons.
Yeah.
No. Magnetrons weren't specified.
What do you mean? Here, magnetrons.
Klystrons are automatically substituted for magnetrons unless no substitution is penciled in. They're usually interchangeable, and klystrons are so much easier to fabricate. But in this case, only magnetrons can keep the oscillators stable. Magnetrons were not specified, and the klystrons that were substituted for them are making the oscillators unstable. It's as simple as that.
Oh, you know, I think you're right.
Bet your life I'm right.
No. You bet your own life.
Discovery of Warren Giles' body later that night, apparently murdered with the same type weapon, brought immediate action on the part of the Metro Squad. Following consultation with Homicide, Price Adams had sent Cavelli and Garcia to pick up Austin Rogers. And at 1:45 a.m., Austin Rogers entered the Metro Squad room.
Sit down, Mr. Rogers.
What's this all about?
Sit down, please. When's the last time you saw Warren Giles?
I saw him at the plant today.
It's 1:45 a.m. You mean yesterday. What time?
It was, before lunch. I don't remember the exact time.
You saw him after lunch, too, didn't you?
No.
Then you didn't have a chance to straighten out that terrible argument you were having.
I've had worse arguments.
Who with, Elliot Green?
What are you talking about, mister?
Warren Giles was murdered last night.
Murdered?
Where were you last night, Mr. Rogers?
Wait a minute. Are you questioning me about Giles' murder?
Where were you last night?
You're out of your
I
mind.
urge you not to lose your temper. Sit down. Now, just answer the question.
Well, I went to Laguna Beach.
What'd you do at Laguna? Visit friends?
No, I saw a play at the summer playhouse. I had a rough day at the plant, and I was tired. I needed some relaxation.
You go alone?
Yeah. At the last minute, the babysitter couldn't get there, so my wife said to go on alone. She knew how bushed I was.
Anyone see you there? Anyone you knew?
No.
What time did you leave Los Angeles to go to Laguna?
Quarter after 7.
What time did you return?
Your men were waiting for me when I got home.
What's the name of that play?
The Party.
What's it about?
It's a comedy about a guy who's got 2 girlfriends, and he keeps them both on the hook. And then there's this third girl who helps him out of jams with the other 2. You know, she sticks up for his lies. In the end, he goes for the third girl.
How'd you know about that play?
My wife read a review in the Sunday theater section. We like plays. I go down to Laguna a couple times a year. Sometimes I even go to La Jolla to catch a play.
Your wife read a review. Then it must have told the same story about the play that you just did.
I guess so. It's the same play. You can't tell a different story.
You didn't have to go to Laguna, and you could still tell me what the play was about. Couldn't you?
But I'm telling you, I was at Laguna.
You got your stub?
Sure. I must have thrown it away.
What about your program?
I think I left it at the theater.
At least a dozen people heard you threaten Giles yesterday, including me. Now, our lab establishes the time of the murder between 8 and 9 last night. You claim you're at the theater, you don't have a stub, you don't have a program, and you tell me a story about the play you could have read in any play review.
I'm telling you the truth.
Did anything unusual happen when you bought your ticket? Something that might make the box office man remember you.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me think. No, I just bought my ticket, that's all.
Anything happened during the performance? Something special? Something you could tell me that we could check out to prove you were there?
Wait a minute. At the beginning of the first act, a piece of the scenery collapsed, and they brought the curtain down for a couple of minutes. They brought the curtain down.
Howard? Give me the number of the Laguna Beach Playhouse.
Price Adams placed a call to the emergency number of the Summer Playhouse in Laguna Beach. It roused the doorman of the playhouse, who gave Adams the phone number of the stage manager for The Party.
TR 84117.
Hello? This is Lieutenant Price Adams, Metropolitan Squad, Los Angeles Police Department.
Well, what's the matter?
Did anything happen during the performance last night to stop the play? Thank you very much. Sorry to bother you. All right, Mr. Rogers, your story checks out. Vince, Sergeant Cavelli will drive you home.
Thanks, Lieutenant. I guess I'll always remember The Party as the greatest play I ever saw. Nothing?
Not altogether. At least we had the good feeling of having a genuine suspect for a while.
Well, might as well go on back to homicide and eat a stolen apple with the rest of the boys. Good night, skinny ones.
Night, Howard.
You plant tomorrow?
Bright and early.
The following day, the arduous job of checking out Henry Giles' murder began. Price Adams painstakingly questioned the president.
No, I'm sorry.
The executives, Hill, Birch, and Bardley. and numerous workers at the plant. While Cavelli and Garcia questioned the bereft family and friends of the dead man. The results achieved in the investigation of Warren Giles' murder proved to be exactly the same as they had been in the Green investigation. Entirely negative.
Not a thing. What about the possibility of sabotage? It's a government project.
No, Captain. I talked to the FBI and the Army about that possibility. They rule it out. Neither Giles nor Green were indispensable. They're just part of the team at Soren's. And there are other men out there who can carry on their work.
You mentioned something to me about a production delay.
That was going on before Green's murder. Kind of a bottleneck.
I see. Well, let's face it. It looks like a psychopathic murderer is loose at Soren's.
Well, that's what we've been working on, questioning all the employees out there to see if there's any chronic complainer or particular crank, someone who might be bitter against the company.
And?
So far, nothing. Of course, we still have a couple of hundred to talk to.
Anything else?
Just that I'd like to stop saying no to that particular question.
On the fourth morning of the Metropolitan Squad's assignment to the Green murder, Price Adams entered Dr. Buell Reed's office.
And the next thing I remembered, I was just standing there with no clothes on. I don't know how I got there.
How's your case coming along, Price? Well, right now we're looking for a psychopathic needle in Soren's haystack. Personally, I feel like I'm banging my head against a stone wall.
Well, that's refreshing. In my private practice, I have consultations with people who not only feel that way, but they're actually doing it.
Hasn't quite come to that yet.
What are you looking for? Some magical psychiatric magnet to pluck out the psychopathic needle?
No, but I would like to carry on our conversation of the other day a bit further, if you don't mind.
Go on.
You told me that if a criminal doesn't confess his crime immediately, he usually tries to work out this compulsion in subtle ways. What do you mean by that?
If you're looking for some specific formula, Price, there is none. They work it out in many different ways. Pre-crime and post-crime. It's a wholly unconscious activity, and the particular pattern depends on the individual.
In terms of the Soren's murders, is it possible that I'm overlooking something? Is there any way for me to know if this particular murderer has got this compulsion to confess?
Perhaps. Let's try to analyze the facts you have from a psychological point of view.
Shoot.
Both men were murdered at the plant. Why? Warren, assuming the motivations for the murders were in some way connected with some plant activity, wouldn't it seem, at least on the surface, more desirable to kill both men away from the plant?
Yeah, but where does that lead you?
It leads me to the conclusion that the murderer is a member of Soren's establishment, and that he committed both murders there because he has a desire to keep coming back to the scene of the crime.
Isn't that a rather worn cliche, Doctor?
Not at all. In the area of compulsion to confess, the criminal is most likely, in his own unconscious, to be apprehended where the crime was committed. You buy that?
My first purchase from the unconscious. Oh, but how do I utilize this information, Doctor? I have been going on the assumption that the murderer is a member of the Soren's organization, and I've questioned practically everybody, but I'm still at a dead end.
Well, that's why we still use police, Price, and not psychiatrists to catch criminals. What I've said is not a panacea for police investigations. It's merely another tool to use along the way if the situation warrants it.
Well, thank you, Doctor.
Let me know what happens.
I will.
And then there were a lot of people around me yelling and screaming.
Right. That was Vince. He and Pete are still pumping the workers about a crank. So far, no dice. Soren seems like a great place to work. We might be working there ourselves. Price?
Let's get out to that plant.
Driven forward by Dr. Reed's comment concerning certain criminals working out their compulsion to confess in post-crime activity, Price Adams began a systematic search of Elliot Green's office.
Homicide's been over this stuff twice. Now so have we.
I know, Joe. Let's check Giles' office again. All right, let's check this against our list. Pen.
Pen.
4 pencils.
4 pencils.
2 erasers.
2 erasers.
Stationery.
Stationery.
Clips.
Clips. Just what is it we're looking for?
A message, Joe. 3 loose-leaf binders.
3 loose-leaf binders? What kind of a message?
I don't know, Joe. I won't know until I find it. Bottle of ink.
Bottle of ink.
Envelopes.
Envelopes?
Desk keys.
Desk keys.
Pencil sharpener.
Pencil sharpener.
Leaves of grass.
Walt Whitman.
Small drill.
What?
Small drill.
When did that get in there?
The murderer put it there, Joe. It's a murder weapon and a message.
What message?
The conscious message is the police have been through here twice, so this is a safe place to hide it. But more important, we got a direct wire from his unconscious.
All right, I'll bite. What does this say?
Get me. I want to give myself up.
The precision hand drill was put through a series of tests by the crime laboratory of the Los Angeles Police Department.
No. There isn't a trace of blood, Price. And all the prints are obliterated.
Thank you, Mike.
Right.
There's got to be more to this. There's got to be.
We got hundreds of them at the plant.
Willeen Corporation. Get on the telephone to Chicago. Find out when they sold this one to Soren's. Serial number's in the back.
Right. The Willeen Corporation doesn't do business with Soren's. Now, this drill was sold to the Holder Electronics Company in Glendale.
Holder. All right, this is all we've got to go on. Now, how does a tool from Holder get into Giles' desk at Soren's? That's what we've got to find out. We'll get a list of the Holder personnel from the FBI, start checking them out. See if there are any men working there who knew Giles or Green. I don't care where they knew them. School, socially, anything. Just check them all out. And keep it quiet. Give me the FBI office, will you?
During the following week, the men of the Metropolitan Squad checked the yearbooks of the California Institute of Technology from which Elliot Green had graduated, and the yearbooks of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology from which Warren Giles had graduated, to see if there were any members of the Holder Corporation who had attended school with the murdered men.
Price, I've got one. Wilkins, Alvin. Nickname Curly.
Alvin Wilkins.
In addition, they went through the membership lists of country clubs and all other organizations that the murdered men had belonged to see whether or not there were any employees at Holder Electronics who belonged to the same groups.
Here's the list. We've been through everything.
The result of their week-long labor was 7 names. 7 men of the Holder Company who could have conceivably known the murdered men.
Good. When are you going to bring them in?
Right now. Split this, will you, Vince?
Yes, I knew him. He was a member of my club.
Were you very friendly?
No, I talked to him a couple of times. Did the same kind of work, electronics.
You ever see him outside the club?
Never.
What about this man?
I never saw him in my life.
As the afternoon wore on, a pattern seemed to be established. Each of the men had had a perfunctory friendship with either Green or Giles. They had a nodding acquaintance at school or church or at a country club.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't mention this talk with anyone.
Whatever you say, Lieutenant. Mr. Wilkins, I'll see that you get home.
I'm Lieutenant Bryce Adams.
Saul Barron.
Won't you sit down, Mr. Barron?
Thank you.
I understand that you attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Mr. Barron.
Hope that isn't a crime.
Warren Giles is a classmate of yours.
Yes. Well, I read about his murder in the newspapers.
What was Mr. Giles' address when you knew him?
From what I can recall, he lived on the campus.
Were you very friendly with Giles at MIT?
Well, I did know him, but we weren't particularly friendly.
After you graduated from school, did you see him at all?
Once, at an electronics convention in Denver last year. I also talked to him on the phone a couple of times when we got back to L.A.
Well, what'd you talk about?
Getting together, having dinner with the wives. But we never got around to it.
When's the last time you spoke with Giles?
3 months ago, I called him to congratulate him that his firm had gotten an Army contract for a missile triggering system.
Why would you call him about that?
Well, my company had bid on the same project. They beat us out. I kidded him about it. I asked him how they proposed to build the triggering system at the price they had submitted. I remember I asked him if they were going to use erector sets to do it.
Was the fact that Soren's got the contract a serious blow to Holder?
And how? We've only been going at half capacity for a long time.
That would be of great advantage to Holder to get the next government contract.
From what I can see, we'd better get something soon.
Is that bad, huh?
Well, I've got a friend on the accounting staff. Holder wasn't able to meet its last 2 notes with the bank. They had to get an extension.
Well, thank you very much for coming down, Mr. Barron. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't mention this interview to anyone.
What do I tell my wife if she asks me where I've been?
I have to leave that up to you, Mr. Barron. Good night.
Good night.
All the pieces fit, Captain. You have the delay in the Soren's company's project, you have the Holder company's financial situation, and that drill tying the two in together. No question in my mind that someone at Holder is paying someone at Soren's to undermine that project. Holder needs the next government contract. Soren's doesn't stand a chance if they come in late with this one. So Giles and Green both must have found out who or what was causing that delay, and that's why they were murdered.
The whole thing would be a lot easier to swallow if we were talking about 2 rival gangs. The Holder Company is a respected member of the business community.
Nevertheless, I'm still positive that what I say is true. Holder is the only other company that can handle that kind of contract.
Have you any idea as to who it might be at Holder?
It's got to be someone near the top. Someone who stands to lose a good deal if the company goes bankrupt.
What about the accomplice at the Soren's plant?
It's got to be someone who's in a position to sabotage the project. I'll talk to Soren's about that.
You have a plan, of course. We can't go around making wholesale accusations of this sort.
I have a plan.
Later that night, Bryce Adams met with George Sorens at Soren's home in Bel Air.
Drink? No, thank you.
I can't believe it. Not Holder.
Well, Mr. Sorens, you'll find desperate, incompetent men in everything. Just because this strikes close to home, that's no reason for you to close your eyes to it.
And what do you want me to do?
Which of your men is in a position to cripple the Army project? Someone who could alter specifications.
Mark Hill could do it. He's in charge of research. And Chris Birch, he could do it. He's Hill's assistant. And so could Tom Bobby, Giles' assistant.
I want you to fire them on Monday morning. I want you to tell them.
Fire them? Why, that's out of the question. I can't operate without them.
Mr. Sorens, do you call what's happening now at your plant operating?
Okay.
Now, I want you to tell them that the government is canceled out because of your inability to meet the contracted date.
And then what?
I don't know yet, Mr. Sorens. I don't know.
On Monday morning, pursuant to Price Adams' instructions, George Sorens fired Mark Hill, Chris Birch, and Thomas Bardley.
Very good, Mr. Sorens. I'm sorry we have to do it this way. Right, thank you.
From the moment the three men left the Sorens plant, they were under the constant surveillance of the Metropolitan Squad. Chris Birch was watched by Pete Garcia. Thomas Bardley was followed by Joe Huddleston. And Mark Hill became Vince Cavelli's assignment.
See Mr. Holloway. My name is Birch.
You can go right in, Mr. Birch.
Hello, Mr. Holloway.
Come in, Birch. I still don't think it was a good idea for you to come here.
Why not? Everybody's gone home.
It's not a question
There's no wrong in your interviewing me for a job.
Except that we don't interview at this time of the night.
But you're making an exception because I'm a special fellow. In fact, I'm so special that besides the job you're giving me, you're going to give me a $15,000 bonus.
Birch, I haven't got it.
You've had plenty of time to get it. You've stalled me for 4 days.
Oh, now, really.
Now, I don't want excuses. I want the money.
Don't worry, you'll get it soon.
You bet I will. I'm going to hound you every day about it. Well, when do I begin working here? Monday?
I think we should wait a little while.
What is this? You promised me $15,000. And the job as head of research here. If Sorens didn't meet its government obligations. Well, it didn't meet them thanks to me. Now, you better meet your obligations to me. You call Holder and tell him that you're hiring me.
Now, you listen, Birch. No, I've tried to tell you in a nice way, and I'm telling you for the last time, Holder isn't hiring right now. I mean, it would look suspicious. When we get the new contracts, you come and see me.
I said now.
How dare you come into my office and try to tell me what to do?
Tell you how I dare. I killed twice for you. And I want what's coming to me.
Killed twice?
You heard me.
Look, we really don't hire at this hour of the night. Please let me wait till morning.
Now.
You know something is wrong. Birch, be reasonable.
I don't want to be reasonable. I don't have to be reasonable.
Wait till morning. Are you going to dial, or do I have to kill you, too?
You're under arrest, Birch, for the murder of Elliot Green and Warren Giles.
You keep away or I'll kill him! I mean it! I'll give you 5 seconds to get out of here!
We'll take him to County General, Price.
I didn't tell him to kill. I didn't know anything about the murder. I swear I didn't.
Your sense of morality eludes me. You're quite willing to destroy Soren's entire life's work without a qualm. But you didn't tell Birch to murder. Let's go.
Well, thanks for coming in and telling me, Price.
Not at all, Doctor. You know a thing that always puzzles me about men like Holloway? He still feels he's innocent of any crime.
Well, that's really not too hard to understand. There are a few warped minds who treat big business as a new kind of cult, and they justify all their antisocial actions in terms of that greater cause. Fortunately, the bulk of big business is run by moral and decent men.
Tell me, is there any special psychological pitch for men like that? What does Holloway have? A compulsion to what?
There's nothing fancy about Holloway, Price. Just plain old-fashioned greed.
I see you, Doctor.
So long, Price.
One of the newer sciences had helped to solve the murders at the Sorens plant. A new science and the men of the new breed.